Um, so some of the results that I've been having, some of the best results that I've been having with the client experiences, one of the more interesting ones that comes to mind was when I first did Q-RIT on a child, and it was a child who was really struggling with anxiety. And on having the conversations with the mum, I'd worked with the mum in the past, so luckily she was very open to me and my work, but she'd not had Q-RIT done before. We'd done other modalities. So I did talk to her about this modality, and I shared with her about how I'd worked on another adult with anxiety. And her daughter, she was only she was seven or eight. I don't remember now, 7 or 8, and she was just absolutely traumatized with life. It was awful. I mean, to the point that it was getting so she was scared to go anywhere. She was scared to do things. And what was interesting that this had all come about from the COVID lockdown experience, and it just shows how much it's sort of affected people. And she just was in fear of death, in fear of everybody dying, in fear of herself dying. It was affecting her school. It was affecting how the children were treating her at school. It was absolutely heartbreaking stuff. And I kind of will remember this session because out of I actually find that children are often are the best people to work with, because they just get on and do what you ask them to do. And us adults like to complicate it. But she was absolutely magnificent, this girl was, in how she responded to the Q-RIT. I didn't have to go through any fancy sales talk or any fancy chat about explaining what it's all about. I just gave her a really simple explanation, and she was like, okay then. And she just did it. And wow, it blew my mind, the session did, where this girl went and what she uncovered. It was, a girl who had no knowledge of past lives or ancestral lines and things like that. And I was asking, using my intuition, working with it, asking certain questions just to help her along the way and help her go deeper. And she was just coming out with stuff that was not what she would have known. It proved so much about how connected she was in that moment, and connecting to all the energy. And it was just brilliant. And we came out of it and she was laughing, she was happy, she was straight away asking her mum if they could stop off for ice cream on the way home. This girl wouldn't have done that prior. She was even struggling to be taken to school. They were having to homeschool her. It was just fantastic. And I've spoken to him regularly, and she's just like what we would class as a healthy, happy little girl. She's not got any of this stuff there at all. What was interesting with the Q-RIT session was it uncovering actually that there was a huge ancestral connection with this, as well as what she'd gone through in the COVID lockdown stuff, and quite a lot of energy transference that had happened from the people around her worrying and having lifetimes of worrying. So there was so many different layers, but it was just such a brilliant session. And the results, I mean, this girl, she's just going to school now, she's happy. And I'm so thankful for that, thankful that her mum and the girl was open to working with me.
That's so good, Charlotte. That's like, ah, just thinking how many kids are anxious at the moment because of all the stuff that happened, and
Yeah,
we can find a way to help them with this technique. If we can get
yeah,
more practitioners helping the children. We actually have one of our master practitioners. She's called Benita. She's creating a version of Q-RIT called Q-RIT for Children.
brilliant.
She's done similar sessions with children, and she had one who had this fear of dogs, and in one
Yeah,
session completely cured them of their fear of dogs. And
yeah,
this kid was scared to go to the park, scared to walk down the street in case there was any dog there, and now they have no fear of that. Right?
yeah,
Imagine the shift in just their life. And she had another one who had this phobia of swimming in water, and now they love swimming in water after just one session.
yeah,
And had
yeah,
another Q-RIT practitioner who they had a 9-year-old who was super, super angry, and they just did a Q-RIT process with them, and now they're not angry anymore. And I do it with
yeah,
my 3-year-old, She comes and she tells me that she's feeling really sad, and I help
Oh,
her. We connect to it, and she's only 3, so I take her through a really simplified version of
beautiful.
the Q-RIT process. But we can get her
Yeah,
sadness to just transmute, help her to figure
yeah,
out why the sadness is there, which is the main thing, right? It's like get to the root cause of it. Like you said, it can be ancestral, it can be environmental, it can come from all these different places. So yeah, I absolutely love that.
yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
A wonderful thing that she described this girl when I was working with her, and she actually then inspired me. And this is what I mean about these Q-RIT sessions, that your client inspires you. So when she was talking, she educated me actually, because when she was talking and describing how the energy was, she was describing it as emoji faces. So the emojis on phones,
Yeah.
she was able to show me the different faces. So when I was sort of saying, well, what about this? And she was saying, well, that's the meh in emoji, and that's the angry face emoji. And I was like, oh my God, this is just genius. This is. Can you imagine that for children? They connect to emojis, don't they? And smiley faces and whatever. All you have to do is communicate with the energy through emojis. So I've done that as a technique working with another child who was 13. Again, it was an anxiety based thing, but it was more fueled around. I actually picked up on this little girl was really, really energy sensitive. So the energies were bogging her down and affecting her, and her ego's reacting with fear to it all. So we had a really interesting session, kind of working on practices clearing the energy, connecting her with her energy, connecting her with the knowing whether it's internal or external energy. And we used the emoji system, I called it. And it just worked fantastically. And you could see instantly she just connected to it and related to it. So it was talking her language. So we just did this, just the emoji system and talking emoji language. And it really, really was powerful. In fact, it was so powerful because it was just so simple, and it all just fell into place instantly, and it sorted itself, and it didn't need to be overcomplicated. It was just fabulous. So yeah, that the Q-RIT sessions have helped me as the therapist, me as the person, help more people. So it's still creating that ripple effect. So the more you do, the more it grows. And that's every single client I've gained something from myself, whether it's personally or professionally or both.
Something really close to my heart, Charlotte, this idea of helping young people. So I was sent to a psychiatric institution when I was 10 because I was
Yeah,
expelled from school. I had lots of unresolved anger and trauma from my dad leaving and challenges with home. And yeah, they sent me for assessment in a psychiatric institution for 6 weeks. And there were people in there who were schizophrenic and self-harmers and bulimic and all different kinds of things. It was very, very intense. And remember, I would be sat in class and some kid would just flip the table over and these guys would come, these wearing white, and you'd pin them down. It was like really, really intense. And I had therapy for a long time. And I learned I just couldn't be honest with my therapist. I couldn't tell them about what I was really thinking because I knew I had to pretend I was okay for them to let me out of the institution. I had to
yeah,
pretend.
yeah. I get that.
And one of the things I think we can bring to the world is to give children and young people these tools and these spaces where they can be real and they can be honest and they can feel safe to express themselves. I love that you have this emoji system. If someone had taken me at 10 years old and given me a Q-RIT session and helped me to heal the trauma, which is so evident to me now. If I met me at 10 and I could say, okay, well, your dad left, you've got this troubled family life, you've got this trauma, obviously, let's work on it. It would be so fast. And yeah, I feel super inspired. Thank you so much for sharing that. Maybe one of the things we could bring, you could share your emoji system with the other Q-RIT practitioners. One of the things for anyone
Yeah,
who's into this, so once you do the level 1 of Q-RIT, you learn the technique. It's 11 steps, and then you know the process. And it just takes 6 hours to learn the 11 steps, and then you just practice, practice, practice. We're going to have all of these add-on modules like Q-RIT for children where you can learn how to do this stuff. So maybe you can come and learn Charlotte's emoji system, and we can
yeah.
transform this healthcare system, and it doesn't just
Yeah.
work on children, it works on adults too.
Yeah, definitely.
So many people are anxious right now, and yeah, I think absolutely wonderful.